Have others ever been frustrated with you because you take too long to respond? Maybe it seems like you're frozen or you're overthinking. Maybe people have told you that you're an overthinker. You feel like an overthinker. And maybe you're starting to internalize these things and think, maybe something's wrong with me because I don't communicate like other people. Well, what if it's not that something's broken or wrong with you? What if it's because you're processing more information than most people typically take in, and it takes you a little bit longer to know what you want to say about it? Today, I want to talk about a term called complex processing. This is a term that was shared with me by a friend. Her name is Sarah Taylor. I'm going to put her information in the description because she's lovely. If you want to learn more about autism in the context of spiritual awakening, she's for you. So complex processing, I want to replace this. I want to replace the term delayed processing, which I've used on the channel before, with complex processing, because I think it's a much better picture of what's actually going on in the autistic brain. So if you're new here, I hope that when you're here on the channel, you feel calm, like you can take a deep breath and kind of just be here, stop scrolling. This is an unedited video, so bear with me, but I feel like it really helps our nervous system kind of just drop in, and there's no hard cuts to throw you off or anything like that. So this video is for you if you feel like you've been misunderstood or have to over-explain yourself, or like you're broken in terms of communication. I want to explore what complex processing is and how it relates to the autistic brain. So let's talk about it. So here's the definition: complex processing. It's the autistic brain's natural tendency to take in, sort, and analyze information in a deeply layered way. Rather than reacting instantly, the autistic mind often pauses to assess nuance, context, sensory input, emotional meaning, past experiences, and potential future impact all at once. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that, if that's your life, because that's my life. This can look like a delay from the outside, but it's actually a powerful form of multidimensional thinking. And what others might call delayed processing is, for many autistic people, complex processing, or a slower, richer, more integrative form of understanding. So this might look like, let's see, I've got my notes here. And again, we're unedited, so thank you for your patience. Some of the things that we might be processing all at once could be tone of voice. Are they being sarcastic or kind, passive aggressive? Facial expressions, are they matching the words that are coming out of this person's mouth? Unspoken expectations, am I supposed to lie and say I'm fine? Do they really want to know how I'm doing? Sensory load, is the room too loud or the lights too bright? Context clues, have we talked about this before? Am I supposed to remember this person's name? Social roles or power dynamics, is it safe to be honest here? Internal signals, what do I feel? What do I actually want to say? Consequences, what will happen if I actually say this out loud? Past experiences, so last time I answered a certain way, they got defensive and it wasn't a good experience. Or body discomfort and sensory distraction, so maybe not even being able to think straight because your back is itching, or you've got a pain in your side. So all of these things might be things that autistic people are thinking about when they're trying to have a conversation with you. I know for me, this is very true. Especially like if somebody asks me a question and I'm thinking about so many of these things in this list, and then they'll follow it up with another question, I'm like, oh my goodness, I haven't even had time to think about this first question, but then I don't even have the words to share that out loud because my brain is like processing all these other things. Goodness. So this might look like, let's talk about some real life examples. At the grocery store, you could be checking out and the cashier says, "Did you find everything okay today?" I love this topic, okay? Because it's so great to explore this. I'm like, yes, this is my brain. So your brain could go into overdrive and think, what do they mean? Should I mention that they're out of oat milk? Do they care? Is this just small talk? If I say no, is it going to hold up the rest of the line? Oh my gosh, this is me. This is me. Okay, after a big conversation, it could look like this. So maybe you have a deep talk with someone and after you feel just kind of weird. Maybe you didn't say exactly what you meant. Maybe you didn't say what you meant, but you're replaying every word and every micro expression, every tone shift. And the next day you realize what you wish you had said. This happens to me a lot. It used to happen to me a lot. I feel like I've gotten a little bit better because in conversations now I can say, I'm not quite sure what I think about that. Give me some time to process that and I'll get back to you with an answer. But this isn't overthinking. This is complex processing, and our brain just needs to finish that loop. We need to have our own time and space to put all the components together that we've taken in, all the information that we're processing, in order to come up with a response that feels true to our nature. So let's get into why this is often misunderstood. In fast-paced, neurotypical environments, quick reactions are often equated with intelligence, competence, or engagement, which I feel like is actually not true, at least for me. Whenever I have like a quick response or, say something off the cuff, a lot of times that's not going to be exactly what I wanted to say or really in line with my actual thoughts on the matter. Autistic processing doesn't really move in a straight line. It's like a labyrinth of internal checks, emotional calculations, sensory filters, and other people can interpret that as slowness or disinterest. I know a lot of times maybe people think I'm disinterested. I am just processing literally like everything that you're saying I'm processing. And that can lead to misunderstandings that can feel invalidating on both sides, or maybe shame inducing. Maybe you feel ashamed of these patterns that you have. There's no need for that. Let's talk about a workplace example. So during a team meeting, your manager asks a question and others chime in immediately with half-formed ideas. You pause because you're organizing your thoughts, but by the time you're ready to speak, the topic has already changed. Story of my life. Later, your manager tells you that they want you to be more proactive. You feel misunderstood as disengaged when the reality is you were mentally mapping multiple variables and you didn't want to speak prematurely. I know I'm going to hear from so many of you in the comments about this experience because it's infuriating. It's like being misunderstood is so infuriating for autistic people. And it happens so often when we're trying to communicate our ideas and we just need a little bit longer. Here's a conversational example. So someone might share a vulnerable story with you and ask what you think. You pause, maybe look off to the side. If you've been around for a while, I always look off, like, I guess my thoughts live in this corner. So I look off to the side. Nothing's over there but my thoughts. And maybe you don't respond right away. And they assume that you're judging or you just don't care, when the reality couldn't be further from the truth. While you're processing all that, they think that you've moved on to the next thing, or, maybe that you didn't really process what they said, but really you're thinking, how can I address this in an emotionally attuned way, right? And there's a lot of factors to consider. I printed these out double-sided on my notes. I'm trying to make sure that I'm in the right spot right now. I think we are. So, okay, here, the next example is in a group hangout. So everyone's throwing out ideas about what movie to watch maybe, and you're thinking, which genre will overwhelm me the least? Will it be too loud or too bright? What if I say no to a horror film and they think I'm boring? I know this was me at like sleepovers when I was younger. Do I have the spoons to advocate for myself right now? That's a real question that I ask myself. And then if you hesitate, someone might say, oh, you're so quiet. Like, what's your opinion? Do you care? You weren't zoning out. You were just calculating safety and your interests, like what you had the capacity for in that moment. Okay, I love this example because this is me. Okay, if you want an insight into Taylor's brain. Next example is deciding where to sit in a new room. So you walk into a crowded workshop, everyone's grabbing seats, your brain is running through scripts, or not scripts, but questions. Where is the nearest exit? Will the fluorescent lights hit me if I'm sitting here? Will the chair squeak? Oh, that's a big one. Like if my chair squeaks, I do not like the attention that puts on me. So I want a non-squeaky chair. Am I too close to other people? Will I be expected to make small talk if I sit here? Will I look like a loner if I sit away from everybody? Will I be antisocial? But by the time you choose a spot, everyone else has settled, and maybe you feel shame because you feel like it took you too long to do just like a basic task that everybody else just seemed to know how to do naturally. That is me. Okay, that's definitely me. Another example could be when someone asks you, are you okay? All right, you might be okay, but your brain is thinking like, do I not look okay? Should I be okay? Do I say yes because I'm being polite? Do I risk being honest? Is it the time or place to cry? Like if I really answer honestly, am I going to start crying, and is that going to make things awkward? The longer you pause, the more awkward it becomes, right? And then it's not because you're unsure of your feelings. It's just because you're checking all of these signals and cues at the same time and trying to figure out like what's expected of you. Okay. Again, let me make sure that I'm on the right page here. Okay. There's a couple more examples. I'm just going to keep sharing because I think they're really helpful. A conflict example could be that a friend or a partner wants to talk it out right now. And this is for me. You need time to reflect, but they interpret your silence as stonewalling or withholding. So this is me. And I've talked about this in other videos, but I was, taught don't let the sun go down on your anger. And sometimes I need the sun to go down on my anger because I need time and space to process. It's not like I'm going to forget about this and ignore it. I just need my own space. So this can come across as avoidance, but the reality is you're really trying to come into alignment with how you think and feel so that you can respond in a helpful and productive way. Here's a school example, maybe as a kid or a teen. So you're called on in class, but you don't answer right away. And the teacher assumes, this is my worst nightmare. This is my worst nightmare. The teacher assumes that you didn't study or that you're not prepared. Oh my gosh. Or that you're being disrespectful. So you feel misunderstood as unprepared or defiant, but the reality was your brain's just organizing this complex web of thoughts and trying to put it into a format that makes sense audibly, right? That is so hard sometimes. And then our last example here is a texting or messaging example. So let's say a friend sends you a long, emotionally heavy message and you don't respond for a day because you want to be present and not reply with something rushed. Actually, I do this with my friend Sarah. She's so thoughtful and she sends me voice messages that are so thoughtful and caring. And it takes me a while to get back to her because I want to be in a place where I can listen to the voice message, I can process it, and then I can be able to respond in a centered way. And she knows that. She's wonderful. But, people who don't understand this might be frustrated and think, are you mad at me? Why aren't you following up? Are you ignoring me? And really, you were just trying to create space so that you could approach the situation with the time that it takes to give, a well thought out and appropriate response. So let's talk about why complex processing can be a strength. Complex processors often notice patterns that others miss. I'm realizing now I've been shifting my chair. I know I'm going to hear in the comments people say, oh, she's shifting so much in her chair. Well, I'm autistic, okay? I'm autistic and I need to move. I need to stim. Okay, complex processors often notice patterns that others miss. They might consider ethical or emotional impacts. That's a big one for autistic people, is considering any form of injustice or unethical practices that are going on. Complex processors also make connections across ideas. And there's actually studies you can find on this of the brain map of autistic people. The amount of connections that we make compared to allistic or non-autistic people is fascinating. We make so many more connections. And then a lot of complex processors respond with intentionality and not impulse, which I think is a huge strength. So for example, an autistic person may take longer to reply in a conflict, but when they do, it's clear that they've truly thought it through. So they might say, I've considered how this affected both of us, and here's what I need going forward. That is emotional maturity. That's not slowness. That's not overthinking. That's being intentional. Language matters. And I think referring to our processing as delayed, which I've done on the channel before, sometimes that maybe could imply broken or something's wrong. But I think complex processing is a great replacement for delayed processing because I think it honors how layered and thoughtful and rich our internal world is. So, if you're interested, I would invite all of us to kind of swap out these terms, maybe using complex processor instead of slow to respond or delayed processing, and give yourself space and time to let your thoughts process and know that that's totally okay. And it can feel really uncomfortable. So part of it is learning how to embrace that discomfort, the awkward silence. It's a skill. It really is a skill. And I think that the people who can embrace that awkward silence and approach it with trust and respect and empathy for the other person, I think that silence and that processing time can really be used to turn the relationship, whether it's a working relationship, a romantic relationship, a friendship, a parent relationship, it can really turn that space into something beautiful and sustainable and supportive. So don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed of those complex processing patterns that we have. Embrace it. We'll learn how to use it together. And if you're looking for a community for more support to help you along the journey, please check out my online community. I have, I'll put a link in the description, and there's a 7-day free trial. There's over 200 of us, and there's over 20 topic discussions. We're talking about burnout, parenting, ADHD, autism over 50, autism in the workplace. So check that out. You don't even have to put a credit card in. We'd love to have you there. And that's where so many of these great suggestions come from. So thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if it was helpful to you. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.